if the ball shoots itself off the root, it doesn't come. Right. And then it comes because it doesn't shoot it off. So what to do? And then Novikov calculates that this ball, which either should have hit itself and shot and put itself off the way, or not hit and then have come through and hit itself, that it would just hit itself very mildly. It would just scratch itself in such a clever way that it comes back and just scratch.
Okay.
So this means that when you shoot this ball in and it comes to hit this ball, which is itself coming through the time machine, but it doesn't matter, then it looks like that it miraculously scratched itself. So this means that when you have these time machines, for instance with this model with the ball, you tend to get miracles. So that means that if you have a model with lots of time machines, as Masao Ninomiya and I were contemplating as a pre-runner for making this theory we are now talking about, then you get more and more miracles, the more complicated loopholes of wormholes you have and so on, and the more time machines. And when you read close to these time machines, maybe miracles become very copious and you have a lot of miracles and so on. And you end up with some temptation that maybe we should look at all the possible solutions as some big number of solutions from which to extract the right solution and so on. And then before really publishing the present version properly, then we deleted these time machines from our considerations, but they had been extremely inspiring for the way of thinking. But we deleted them out of it. So now we could make a sort of model which we could consider in some way a little bit more realistic,
right?
Because these time machines made from black hole, made from
wormholes
and so on, they are a little bit far out. They are very hard, so you better ignore them in present day physics. But you don't ignore Higgs production. That is much more realistic. Probably the Tevatron in Chicago already produced them, and at least we expect that LHC will produce them very soon.
Yes.
So they are much more interesting to look for. And this is, in a way, a connection, but that is just our way to come to it.
Yes.
Came via time machine thinking.
Well, that's very interesting. And even if we talk a little bit more on that theme, would this in some way imply as well that the future, if you will, then is written in stone? If you take things like free will into account here, is this something that goes out the door because everything is predestined, if you will, or it maybe?
Yes, I think so, but perhaps I would say that even before sort of crazy theories like ours with influence from the future or backward causation and such things, the free will in some sense has gone out of the door already, because when you think of the classical physics, which is deterministic, so if you start some initial condition, then you can develop it, and you essentially, in principle, you get a well-defined result.
Yes.
In the classical approximation. In quantum mechanics, it's different because we have these probability distributions from the Copenhagen interpretation, or these Born probabilities. But in this way, it is well defined what you would do. So in this way, in a way, your will and the result of your decision is already in principle calculable from the initial conditions. maybe not in practice. But I would say personally that very often a minimal amount of knowledge of a person and of psychology will be enough to tell what these people will decide. Because
right.
if you know their character and their wishes and so on, and you know the conditions, in many cases, almost anybody of their friends or their enemies or good psychologists can calculate their decision,
their next
and
move,
what they
so
will do.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, of course, they had, in some sense, a free will in their own thinking. They could have done something better. They could have avoided stealing what they now decide to steal because they have a good chance to do it. They could have behaved properly. But of course, everybody knowing the one might know that he would never do that. And knowing for somebody else that he would never steal, of course, and would never do it even if there was $1 million lying there in cash and things like that. So one knows this. And even then, you will go to the court and you will judge the guy and say you are guilty because you could have decided differently. And in a way, he could have decided differently, but didn't do it in the sense that everybody knew that he wouldn't do it differently, and he would be put to jail for it and so on.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So I think that the free will is somehow a matter of this imagination of the possibilities of the games that you somehow play psychologically, that you can play, that there are these options. So it belongs to the fantasy of the person who enjoys this free will. But it's not really free in the sense that it depends on any mysterious soul or so. We don't need a soul in the theory, or rather, the soul is to be something slightly different.
That's
if
a little
we
bit
have
different.
a
Yes.
deterministic theory going on.
Yes, absolutely.
And even the non-determinism of the quantum mechanics, I don't think you should use this to repair the problem, because I think that it is very bad for our decisions if they are influenced too much by quantum fluctuations. Probably they are influenced a little bit, but I think that we better should avoid it, and probably genetic development by survival of the fittest would make the ones that had too much accidental decisions, which is unnecessarily accidental, not be doing very well. So I think it would be better to make reasonable decisions which are based on some kind of logic or pseudo-logic or wishes or something than too much quantum mechanics, but it probably comes in.
Absolutely. Why don't we spend the last 5 or so minutes that we have left here, if there's something that you'd like to mention about random dynamics that you think that we haven't touched upon that might be interesting for our listeners, Holger?
Yes, there is much in random dynamics. Maybe there would, maybe first I could mention one little thing.
Yes.
There has been an argument against this model of making Higgses not come to be produced. And that had been the argument that it's a very serious argument about that there is there's cosmic ray coming in to the Earth every day. And some of this cosmic ray has so high energy that even though it hits atoms in the atmosphere, which are standing still more or less or moving very slowly, then the energy produced in the center of mass, the effective energy for producing funny particles like Higgs, is bigger than or as big as the one you have in LHC when it is running well. So this means that, strictly speaking, the cosmic ray should have been cut off